before.
I know, I just saw that also.
Yeah, I was like, shucks, that portal's a mess.
It is.
Well, good. So welcome, everyone. We'll get started. I know we have a great turnout here in person, and then we have some people joining us online, and we won't see them on the screen, but if you all have any questions, you can enter them into our Q&A or in the chat on the webinar. So welcome to the Keys to Kinesiology Alumni Networking Panel event. We're thrilled to have you all join us for this event hosted by SOPA. And so we hope to provide you all with an opportunity to hear from successful SOPA graduates who excelled in their careers. Our alumni panelists include Sam Dabercow. She's a clinical wellness coordinator at BioJust. Maria Rabondo, she's a disease intervention specialist at the state of Louisiana Office of Public Health. And Doja Woods, head coach of the Denver University women's basketball team. So we're going to discuss their career paths, what they learned at Tulane, and they'll share their top tips for breaking into their respective industries. So we want the presentation to be interactive. So if you all have any questions, please don't hesitate to raise your hand or ask them in the Q&A. And thanks again for joining us. So we'll go ahead and get started. So I want to ask each one of you to just introduce yourselves. I'm going to start with Doja. We're going to go backwards in the alphabet. Doja, you're probably used to going last. And so tell us about your current role and a typical day in the life as head coach.
Good. Well, thank you for the introduction. I am Doja Woods, as she mentioned, head women's basketball coach here at the University of Denver, or we go by DU as well. So sometimes it gets confusing. I've been here, I just completed my third year. I got the job here in a pandemic, and I also completed my master's in kinesiology in the pandemic as well, in health and wellness. So in 2020, May, I graduated, then I got this position in July 2020. But I spent 10 years at Tulane as a recruiting coordinator with the women's basketball team there. And then the last 2 years is when I started working on SOPA. I personally love SOPA because it was all online, and it gave me a chance to still both do what my day job is and obviously like learn on the side. And I'm most appreciative for SOPA because had I not done that, this entire interview process to get this job was 4 weeks, and it was all done via Zoom. And I was clueless what Zoom was, but because I'd started taking classes, it let me navigate the process. I remember the one full day of interviews, I kept changing my background for like each person, something specific. And it was just a minor little detail that they appreciated. I'm not saying it helped me get the job, but again, had I not been familiar with Zoom, I don't know if I would have been as comfortable spending 4 weeks and then ultimately in the whole day getting the job. In women's basketball, when you ask like, what is a typical day like? Right now, I leave tomorrow to go to Norfolk, Virginia to recruit. I'll spend a day there, then I'll go to Milwaukee to recruit. All probably to recruit a bunch of players that may end up in the portal next year at this time. So, I'm one, and my staff, we try to recruit in terms of like relationships, but it's still tricky now. So trying to figure out this new landscape. A typical day, I'm a morning person, so it's made our team be a morning person. I like to get up, get practice out the way so you can have the rest of your day. So we've already done that for the day. And then I didn't realize how many just decisions I had to make. Like, I don't care what y'all wear for practice, just look the same. I don't care what we're going to eat, just eat. Like, I'm not one of those coaches. So trying to lessen some of those decisions. I can go on and on because basketball is a little different, so I'm not going to hoard it. I think, Maria, you're next based on what Susan said, but definitely here for any questions. Basketball is a little tricky one, so I'm interested in what the other two have to say.
Awesome.
Nice meeting you guys.
Thanks so much. And I loved the tip about changing your background on Zoom. That's so cool. I've never thought of that. So I'm gonna share that when I'm counseling students. So Maria, we'd love to hear about your job and what is a typical day in the life at work for you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. My name is Maria Rabondo. I graduated from SOPA at the end of 2018, and then I went on to get a master's degree in public health with a focus in epidemiology. And now I work for the State Office of Public Health as an infectious disease epidemiologist. So our days vary. Right now, it depends on what diseases get reported into the state, depends on what my day looks like. Right now, we're dealing with a lot of Vibrio, which is a bacteria found in raw oysters. So if you've ever heard, don't eat raw oysters, this is why. So lately, my days have been looking like tracking down the patients that have been diagnosed with this illness, interviewing them, trying to find out where they've eaten, when they ate there, and then contacting that restaurant. We get the sanitarians involved, get them out there to see what's going on in that restaurant. But like I said, every day is a little bit different. It just depends on what people in our communities are sick with. So it's very interesting and never a dull moment. So thank you
Awesome.
very much. Yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Okay, so we're not supposed to eat raw oysters, is that?
Yeah, no,
that's my
never.
takeaway? Okay.
Right.
Wow. Okay, oh, no.
Are you out here crushing people's dreams? What do you mean you can't eat raw oysters?
I know. I'm very sorry, but trust me, you shouldn't eat them.
All right, we have a question in the room.
How, did you say how long you've been there?
I have been here a little bit over a year. So I took
wondering
some
if you-
time off.
Pandemic, no.
Okay.
Awesome. All right, so Sam, let us know a little bit about you and what you're currently doing.
Okay, awesome. Thanks for having me. So I went to Tulane. I did the SOPA undergraduate in health and wellness. And then the following year I graduated. I don't even remember. I just graduated with my master's in this past, no, I think it's been 2 Decembers ago. I can't even, no, it must have been this past December. I'm so confused, y'all. If y'all can't tell, I have no concept of time. And so I finished in December. I was just in school for so long that I honestly, like, it just transitioned to the next that I couldn't keep track. But well, yeah, SOPA was great for me because I like worked at, different jobs in college just to like have something. I knew I definitely wanted to do health and wellness, but I wasn't sure what direction I wanted to take. So I was like, I'm just going to go forward and get my master's and that'll open doors. And so in November, I was working somewhere temporarily, and I had signed up to get my labs drawn at where I work now, BioJust, which is a precision medicine clinic that does like a full eval on your labs. You do like this full extensive panel, and basically it tells you all about your hormones, your thyroid, your metabolism, all these things that I was always just curious about. And I had heard about it, so I was like, I'm gonna go. And then in my consult with the provider going over my labs, it was kind of like a get to know you, like, oh, what do you do? What do you study? And in the midst of that, I was like, I'm in my master's program right now. I graduate in December for health and wellness. And he's like, oh, what do you want to do? And I said, I don't know for sure. I said, probably something involving like people's overall wellness without specifically, I don't want to go to dietetics and do that. And I said, I think I want a broader, maybe corporate wellness or start small base with clients. I don't know what. And he said, we're a new clinic. We've been here for about a year, but we are looking to branch out, the wellness side of our clinic. We have a lot of people who come in and get their hormones checked and maybe do like some sort of restorative therapy with their hormones. They're like, but we need somebody with the guidance to also teach them how to take care of their lives outside of the clinic. So you can come in and you can get on medicine and come up with a plan, but how do you live a healthy lifestyle outside of here? And I was like, that sounds like something I would like. So I thought about it for a little bit, and then I gave the place I was at 2 weeks, and they were more than supportive. And so I've been with BioJust literally right when I finished grad school. I've been there for about 5 months now. And so like a day in the life. I also work like as a part-time like clinical coordinator. So I help out under the guidance of the provider. I'm able to like help with lab draws, ordering meds and those things with his approval. And then we have, some people that come in for hormone restorative or whatever, or maybe it's like a example, of a day would be like a postmenopausal woman comes in and discusses like, hey, I am eating right and I'm exercising well and I cannot lose weight. So, if they get on a plan and then she's like, okay, I'm starting to feel better, but like, I don't know if the exercises that I'm doing make any sense. I don't know if I'm doing the right thing. I don't know if the ingredients in here are good. So what I do mostly is I kind of just baseline educate people kind of on like supporting them in reading a label, or if they ask me like, does this make sense, or is this says vegetable in it, does that mean it's good or it's real? And so I kind of just break that down with people. I will say I have done an extensive amount of research on, and I think this is important to say because it took me a little bit to learn where like the guidelines stop for what I am able to say and what advice I am able to give. I find that with my master's degree, it's a lot broader. So I can kind of just like help people with questions and like send them studies or like break down research for them. But by no means do I give someone like a week meal plan. I say, follow this. Like, that's not what I'm able to do, but I am able to like call myself a health coach. So I basically support people in the clinic and then outside of the clinic. So they'll ask like, hey, like, what are some good brands? Or like, how do I, and also I'm a certified bar instructor. So a lot of people are like, okay, like teach me how to work out, or or they'll come to class and be like, just help me. So I do a lot of that stuff, which is really what I wanted to do. I wasn't sure what direction it was going to go in. But it's been fantastic. I mean, I love the people that I work with. I love being able to help people. And it's really cool because we have like another side of our clinic that's NeuroJust, which focuses on TMS, which I'll make it brief, but it's transcranial magnetic stimulation if anyone's familiar, but it's a non-invasive way to treat depression and anxiety. So sometimes say you treat somebody 36 treatments and they're feeling better and they're like, okay, I feel better. But then they also can come to me and say, how do I feel better? How do I eat better? Because like when I was feeling one type of way, I ate one type of way, or I lived one type of way. Can you just guide me? So I get to do a lot of that too. And it's like a really rewarding experience. I will say I felt like aside from word of mouth getting connected at my job, I did not have a LinkedIn until I went to Tulane. And that was like a big thing for me is I set up my LinkedIn and I got connected that way. And that opened a lot of doors. I had a lot of people reach out. I've connected with a lot of people that I had class with that I didn't really know that well. So I feel like all that kind of set me up to where I am. So yeah, that's kind of like a summary.
Awesome. So do they just have one location?
So technically, yes. So we have one full location in Metairie, which has BioJust and NeuroJust Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. But we do have a BioJust clinic in Prairieville, which is where our provider lives. So 2 days a week, he works out of the Prairieville clinic doing like lab draws and consults. And then 3 days a week, he commutes to Metairie. So we have 2 clinics. They eventually want to open up, but that's going to take more staff, more other things.
I love it. I love the story on how, like you were just in the office and it happened, right? So hopefully everyone, it could be just out of the blue. You never know who you're going to meet when you go somewhere. So I'm going to turn it back to Dosha. Tell us, while you were at SOPA, did you work while you were in school? Like, if you did, how did you handle time management? And, did those jobs while you were in school, if you had one, did that help build your resume?
Yeah, well, as I mentioned, the whole time I spent 10 years at Tulane working with women's basketball and being the recruiting coordinator. So it's kind of one where my primary role was to travel around and watch a lot of these potential athletes who are going to come. So it got a bit tricky. I think I tried to do my best to manage the time. We are required to give a day off. So that's usually when I'll try to get some of my work done outside of work hours. So I spent a lot of evenings. My spouse at the time, bless her heart, because like there was really like no date nights, there was no anything, like I got to write this paper, have to read this book. So I did a lot of it in the evening to do it that way. And I think one thing that I pride myself on is probably like a good year or so, like no one really knew I was even taking classes. So I think the best way to balance it out is like work always came first in a sense, my work job. And I hated missing, I like the structure of SOPA where it was like Wednesdays, Sundays. So I knew kind of what to expect and how to arrange my schedule that way, whether it's a discussion post or to get an assignment done on time. I don't think I really missed one. Now, one thing I didn't realize, summer recruiting it was crazy. So I took 2 classes in July. Hindsight, I probably shouldn't have done that because I'm watching a game at 8 a.m. and the papers due at like, midnight that night. Well, now I have games like 8 to 9, and then I'm trying to squeeze it in. So that summer was difficult, and I probably should have just taken 1 class, but I really try to manage it where but on your phone, because obviously you guys don't do like the old school like planners, but on my phone, I would kind of go through my notes and calendar and put when things were due. And not only when it was due, but when I had time to work on it, because that was important. If I didn't have time to work on it, I probably wasn't going to be able to get it done. And then obviously just with our own game schedule. And then when our kids were doing study hall on the road, I'm doing study hall. Like normally I wouldn't have to handle it, but I'm like, I gotta be in here. I gotta watch you anyway. So I might as well get some of my own work done.
Oh, I love that you put the time in your calendar for when you could work on things. I've never thought about that. Okay, all right, I'm learning this whole time. So Maria, when you were here, did you work while you were taking classes at SOPA?
Thank you. Yeah, I did. I worked as a full-time nanny. So I had a little boy that I took care of, and my schedule just worked around his. So when he took a nap, then I would have to figure out like, what assignment do I have that I've got like 45 minutes, I can take care of it while he's sleeping. And then also evenings and weekends, but I like took a very slow approach to getting back into school. Thankfully, the structure of SOPA allowed me to start with just 1 or 2 classes and ease my way into it. So that helped me to organize my time a little bit better, learn how to organize it before I took on a bigger course load.
Yeah, I would say it's almost like a setup when it's online, like you think you're gonna have more time. No, ma'am. No, ma'am. You need
I
to
agree.
organize that. That's a setup.
It's a trick for sure.
Sam, I know you were working because I met Sam. She was my instructor at a workout class.
Yeah, so I have bounced, yeah, so I teach, I'm a certified bar instructor. I teach at Hour Blast. I taught somewhere on magazine. I overwork, y'all, but it's just like I like to have my schedule filled. But when I was in undergrad and grad school, I always maintained a job. I think when I first started undergrad, I worked at a preschool for a couple of years, and in grad school, I think during COVID transition to grad school, I had worked front desk at the bar studio I became certified at. And then I started working at my current job full time in like November, December. So I was like transitioning like with grad school in that. I've always worked. I found that SOPA was very accommodating to a work schedule, so I wasn't too stressed about it. I think when I was in school, and y'all maybe, some of y'all can relate, but I mean, there would be things between like, if it's your work, if it's your home life, if it's hurricane season, things would happen. And I just found it to be very accommodating to that. Or if something came up last minute and I was like, I'm so sorry, I cannot get off of work right now. And I worked somewhere where I sometimes had to fill in for people and I couldn't get on the Zoom. I had confirmed to get on for school, and I would just email and I would say like, I'm so sorry, I'm not able to leave right now. I'll Zoom after. And I've never had an experience where people weren't accommodating to that, professors, other students and stuff. But I can see how like it could be very challenging with the full-time and like taking on full-time hours. I think I did full-time in grad school too. But it was a really good learning experience for someone to like growing up, taking the working adult and school and trying to like prioritize. I mean, the deadlines are there. I would try to get stuff done ahead of time. I also procrastinated, like all the things happened, but I found it to be manageable. It took some time to get there, but I found it to be very, it worked with my schedule and my everything in between. So
Awesome. So I know we're here to talk about networking with alumni. So Toja, I'm going to turn it back to you and ask you, So do you have any like tips or strategies for networking? Anything about LinkedIn that you like, or like, do you belong to any local organizations or national organizations that help with networking, or any advice for students on how to network?
I'm going to be completely honest. My LinkedIn, I just updated it like maybe last week.
Oh,
It's a platform that I need to be much better at. I'm more of like a Twitter, don't shoot me, Instagram type person. But I think if you ask a lot of my peers in my profession, they'll say I'm very well connected. And I think networking is one of those things that whatever profession you're interested in, obviously LinkedIn is most in terms of professionally, but being intentional about reaching out to those people. I spoke recently at our WBCA Women's Basketball Coaches Association convention in at the Final Four, actually over this topic about just networking and how to kind of build your brand. And I think one thing I learned, this last season, I just finished year 22 coaching overall. And what I think I've changed from my first year to now has just been a lot more intentional. So in basketball, if there's a coach or a program that I like how they play, or if I saw a play or something that they did either on Twitter or that they tweeted out, I'd reach out to that person. So now I have something to talk to them about. It's not just like a cold call. Like, hey, I saw you play and you won this game. Now it's like, hey, in the third quarter, you ran this play or you did this thing defensively, to have that instant connection. I spent 19 years as an assistant, and the last probably few years, I got really frustrated because I thought, oh, people are getting jobs that I knew I was qualified for, knew I was ready for. And I realized that I'd wait till about March to start reaching out to people to help me, right? Like I'd call this AD or this athletic director or this senior women's administrator that I knew. I hadn't talked to them all year, but now in March, I need something for them. And so I realized that wasn't working either. So I started to shorten my list, and I'd follow these athletic directors that I knew I was close to throughout the year. So if their football team did something well, or their volleyball team, I'd shoot them an email, shoot them a message like, hey, I saw that. So then once we got to March, now my name is already fresh in their list. Now they already I'm not calling them because I need something. So I would say be intentional about what you do, what you want, and then being okay, like reaching out to those people. We get 1 million emails a day. And I had an assistant job opened last year, and the person actually got the job because they slid into my DMs on Twitter. They liked a tweet and then they DM me something, and I didn't like the first person that I interviewed. So I was like, let me circle back around, and it turned out to be a great fit. So don't be afraid to put yourself out there in some of these type of resources, especially on social media, but making sure it's intentional. Don't just cold call. Make sure that you've researched that person, that you have something that's going to require them to answer you back. That's the biggest key. Don't just cold call, but a question at the end, or something that's going to make them smile.
Yeah, I love that advice. I mean, I know we all talk about LinkedIn being our professional network, but you're so right. I mean, you can, this just happened. So my cat has an Instagram account, and I just showed it to Andrea in marketing here. And she was like, oh, your cat always likes the SOPA posts. So like, she's noticed it, right? I mean, it's so random, but if you're liking people's posts, your name is coming up in their Twitter feed or on their Instagram. And the more hits and the more times people see your name, then if you send them a DM, they're going to open it. That name is going to be familiar to them. So that is such an awesome story. And it's so true, but also being intentional and those details about what you saw, what a player was doing or whatever, people are blown away if you connect with them with details. So Maria, what is your advice on networking? And if you, do you belong to any organizations or anything that you think could be helpful for our students?
I do not belong to any organizations, but I now feel motivated to figure out where I belong. But I would say my biggest tip for networking is to just talk to people when you meet them, talk to your classmates, get to know them, get to know what their interests are, because you are all then going out into the workforce, even if it's in a different field. There's so much collaboration that happens, and to just have that connection with someone in that other organization or what have you, it's such a big benefit. So that is my advice to you is, and I know it's a little awkward now with all the technology and stuff, but like to actually face to face talk to the people that you encounter can really be beneficial.
Yeah, I agree. And it's just so important to, make a connection with people and reach out and do follow up. And like you said, your classmates, your professors, you have no idea who can help connect you to your next job. And they might not connect you today, but you could stay connected to them and they might help you 10 years from now. You have no idea, who's going to know who or who's moved jobs and now an old classmate of yours is working somewhere where you want to work. I mean, it's crazy on LinkedIn. You can search for people and you find out everything about them in 2 seconds. So helpful. So Sam, any tips on how to network from you?
Yeah, so I think LinkedIn was definitely like a good start. Like I really honestly don't know how to work it that well, but I knew to like put in all my information on it and then like people can, combine all that. I also like worked the front desk at the bar studio because it's a health and wellness studio. And I was like, okay, with what I like, I'll kind of like expose myself to it. And then from there I became an instructor. I met so many people, obviously, in the health and wellness are interested. And I definitely think in like professors, that was my biggest connection. I just would, be very forthcoming, like, hey, I know you studied this. How did you get there? What is your advice for me? I've had professors connect me with internships that served me like well beyond what I had wanted, or maybe I did my internship and I continued working with that organization, in undergrad and then in grad school, finding internships that way. I mean, for me, my biggest connections, like I said, would be, word of mouth. I was born and raised in New Orleans, and like, Susan was saying, like with working at the fitness studio, I was able to meet her and meet different people and connect. And just people be like, what are you studying? And this, and like, oh, I know somebody here, I know somebody there. And I also just interviewed too. I just put myself out there and I was like, even if I'm very unsure about this, like, let me, I'll see what I can bring to the table and vice versa. And like, I came with questions ready. And if I didn't like it, I didn't have to accept, but I think that's like a hard thing to do, to put yourself out there and just, experience different types of interviewing and all those things. And ultimately it got me to where I am now. So, I think just branching out, meeting people. I've had people reach out to me, in grad school and are like, hey, I heard you did this internship. How did you connect? And then I would send contacts and then they did it. And then they're like, thank you, that was great. So like, just, I think each other, even if it's, you only know somebody from Zoom, when it's like the little awkward icebreakers, like get to know you. If you hear somebody with similar interests or goals, or like, oh yeah, I'm currently doing this, just reaching out, putting yourself out there. And like everything always comes full circle and works out for the best. So my
Yeah,
best.
that's awesome. I agree. Interviewing, you can meet so many people.
I did want to add one thing, because
Yeah.
this is something that I use with our athletes, is like, for any of you guys that want to coach, is every time you leave your dorm room or your apartment, you're literally on the interview, like someone is watching you. And I think if you are an athlete in there, especially in athletics, because you're going to stand out for whatever reason, whether you look athletic or just your other demands that you have, that never miss those opportunities in a sense of somebody's always watching you. When I had the position open last year, when I went to the convention, I actually had a short list. And I just watched people move, and I purposely didn't post a job until after the convention, because I ended up taking like 4 people off my list because of how they moved and how they operated. The same this weekend when I go at recruiting, I'm going to have another short list just in case one of my assistants level up or leave at some point. And I'm sure I'm going to either add or subtract off that list based off how people move and operate. So when you leave, to always be mindful of like how you're moving, because someone's watching, especially in the coaching world, because it's so small, and the word of mouth is just as important. But then how you carry yourself is what a lot of people are also paying attention to, which includes your social media.
Yes, yes. People are definitely looking. I was a recruiter and that was on our checklist. We had to look at people's social media. So tell us a little bit about, like you said, when you were hiring, when someone's in an interview, like, what are you looking for? Like, what characteristics are you looking for in a candidate? And like, what, like, why do you hire someone? You know, what is it about that person that gets them the job?
You know, well, the first year when I got the job, I thought I had this like short list and, you know, I had attended a ton of conferences, but like assistant coaches, I want to be head coaches. I was all prepared. Well, no one said I was gonna get this job in a pandemic with a team that had mental health issues and culture issues. Like there was like no playbook for that. So what I thought I needed, in addition to when you talk about hiring a staff, I was gonna be short staffed because of the pandemic and I had to keep somebody that was already here. So everything that I thought I was going to be able to do, it was just like a shit show. Sorry. The first year was just ridiculous. So now to finally have my staff, I think I was able to figure out who I wanted to be as a leader, as a head coach now, and how those people could balance me out. So now, again, literally last week, I was just giving someone else, a young coach, this advice is looking for the right fit is looking what you have already and like who can fill some holes that you may have, right? Like we have a smaller staff. It's not as big as Tulane, so we don't have some of the extra support staff. So I needed somebody that could be familiar with Photoshop, who could do some of our social media, who could organize our mentor program, who can also organize our Life 4.0 program. So looking for what I need, and then those characteristics of people use those kind of buzzwords, oh, you have to be loyal, you have to be those things. But I think the biggest thing is finding people that are okay being proactive. I'm not a micromanager. And so I don't want to sit and tell you each project when to do it, when it needs to be done. So in the interview process, I tailor my questions to, you're in charge of this project. Here's when I need it by, like, what's your timeline to get it done? And I've started to ask my questions a little differently that way. So instead of saying it's hard to say because I love my staff now, we're all going to be together for another year. But when a position opens, it really just depends on who's leaving and what did I ask them to do the time that they were here. So making sure that we're not all like-minded people. As long as you have some energy and you're learning, I feel like I'm a good enough teacher, good enough leader. I can teach you everything else. But I think low energy people, the team and staff will tell you, I'm not the person for you. You got to wake up. You got to say good morning. You got to say something back. Don't just stare. I'm not the person for you. And I started just being very transparent with our staff and team that like, y'all got to speak to me because you're just not going to stare at each other. We're practicing in the morning. So get up early because I'm going to get up early. I think setting some of those boundaries on the front end, but making sure they balance out what I need for that particular year. So I can't say I need, loyalty or I need somebody who's going to, as long as you have energy and you want to work and you want to learn, I feel confident in my ability to teach you.
I love that. Proactive. That's so important. I agree 100%. So Maria, have you experienced any hiring on your end? And if so, what are y'all looking for at your organization?
I have not, but there's a lot of self-discipline that's required for what we do. I work in the office 2 days a week. I work from home 3 days a week, but I have to get my work done. So I've had to figure out a way to structure my time, structure my day around what's coming in, and I've got to make it happen. So I think that it takes a lot of self-discipline. It also takes a lot of compassion, which is weird because I was thinking I was going into epi and I was going to be dealing with data and like working on my computer all the time. And it's a lot of peopling, which thankfully I enjoy, but there is a lot of collaboration in the office, but then also within the community. So I think, and I could see that to be true for kinesiology in general, for all of our jobs, for everyone here up here tonight. I think that's a really important piece of it.
Absolutely. I agree. I love that. Peopling. And so Sam, tell us your point of view on this.
Yeah. Every interview that I've done has been different. I have never directly been a part of hiring at my clinic. It's very small. We have like less than 10 people. I can tell you about like my hiring process was like kind of like they kind of talked, like the provider talked to me in the consult and just was like, oh, we're looking to expand that, and then I let it sit. Then we met for coffee for about an hour and just like laid out like what his expectations were, what mine were, if we could meet, and then from there, I met with the two owners of the clinic. And they were just, asking me, like questions about what I do, what I've studied, what am I looking to do, and then what they were going to expect of me. I mean, we talked big things. I mean, at a job, like you talk salary, you talk benefits, you talk retirement, like all those things are very valid. I've honestly just learned, though, I have never directly been hiring anybody, being in the process myself to like accept a job and actually go through with it. It's like, you know, asking, setting expectations, but also like knowing your worth going into those situations, not, just being very transparent about what you're looking for. And if something's not fit, that's okay. I've had interviews where like maybe I thought it would go like a different way and it completely went the opposite way. And it wasn't awful. It just was not the right fit. But I think, yeah, like I think social media is a big thing, like how you present yourself. I think the way you interview also is a big thing. Like you could be great, on paper and other things, but I mean, I've learned a lot of interviewing skills, like, and I'm sitting here saying like 500 times, as you can see, thankfully my job, it doesn't bother them, but when I realize how often I'm saying it, silly things like that. But for the most part, I think it's just be yourself. You will gravitate to where you're meant to be. You will know when it's a right fit. And if it's not, you're not married to it. You can give yourself some grace to find what works for you. But I don't like telling people no necessarily. So like even going through a process where maybe they offered me a job, there was some guilt with saying thank you, but no thank you. But I just think, yeah, I think it's all about find things that bring you joy that you're passionate about. And I found that in undergrad and grad school, like I loved the classes that I took so much, and I actually was paying attention. I was like, this is great, this is fun. And I knew I wanted to steer in that direction even after I graduated. So I was patient and I waited and I exposed myself to different things. And then it all comes together.
So what do y'all think about, so I tell students, a lot of times people look at job descriptions and they're a little bit deterred because maybe they don't meet all of the qualifications. And so what is, and any of you can hop on and answer this if you have an opinion. What do y'all think about if you look at a job description and maybe you meet some of the qualifications, but not all of them? What would be your advice to students on that situation?
I would say apply anyway, and especially the female students. I'm amazed at even this job, being a head coach, they had the criteria listed, and there were janitors that thought that they could coach a Division I women's basketball team just because that's how confident they were. And even when some assistant positions came open, it was probably about 10-1, because what females typically do, and I actually called a few of them back they didn't meet what I was looking for, but we did interviews anyway, so I can kind of like mentor them and coach them through it. But I think females had it, in my experience anyway, are like, I don't check all of these, so I'm not going to apply. Or if they know they don't, they'll send the cover letter and kind of discredit themselves in the cover letter. Like you got to have a little bit more confidence. And that's why I said, if you have the ability to learn and bring some energy, rarely is somebody going to turn that down. So not looking at it as like what it says. Yeah, check some of those boxes, but think about what you can bring to that organization and that program, that team, whatever. So I say still apply, because men are going to apply for whatever. It doesn't matter. If they think they always think they can do the job, and it doesn't matter if it's my job or just this job. Like it's always 10-1 when the positions come open, whether they check one of the boxes or none of the boxes, it doesn't matter.
You're right. It's true.
Sorry if that was too real. I'm sorry. I can clean it
I
up for you.
encourage the students, because I mean, job descriptions can also be so vague, and they obviously don't encompass everything that is involved in the job. And sometimes they're just not well written, or they don't actually apply to everything. But I definitely agree. Just apply if you meet some of the requirements, and if you go in there with a positive attitude and proactive, high energy, you're probably gonna get the job. So I agree. Maria or Sam, do y'all have an opinion on that?
Yeah, I definitely agree. Also, just go for it. Even if that ends up not being the right fit for you, you've made that connection. They've seen your documents, they've seen you, you're on their radar. And you might not be the right fit for that, but maybe you're the right fit for something else, and now they know about you. So I say go for it for sure.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think too, even if, this is silly, but even if you know you're not a right fit, like there were jobs that I was beyond underqualified for, and I was like, it exposed, like, I know I keep saying the word exposed, but like, you keep showing yourself, like, interviewing skills, seeing what jobs are, seeing what people think you're worth versus what you can bring to the table. The more I did it, the more confident I felt. And then I finally, like, my resume got a lot better. I like, I sent in and had resume help, and I was like, oh, like maybe my resume, you can tailor so many things to when it is the right time and the right job or the right place, or just even if it's the right job at the right time. It doesn't have to be your forever job. You've gone through all that to get where you are. And I felt like, like I said, just putting myself through that over and over again, tracking a bunch of, I mean, there were so many job descriptions that were like, not what I thought, or maybe what I thought, or I wanted, and it wasn't there yet. But definitely apply, don't sell yourself short, know your worth. You're going through all this to get to the place that you're meant to be at, and the right employer will see that and will give you that fair chance. So
Yes. And Doja, you mentioned, which I loved, maybe helping some people and mentor them, even if they didn't get hired with you. So I'm assuming that you had some great mentors along the way. So do you all have advice on how to get a good mentor or how to build a relationship with someone, so they can be your, warrior and promote positivity and help you with your job search?
Yeah, I think to try to narrow my own mentors down. When I was younger, I'd like reach out to a lot of the big time coaches. If I saw them like, oh, can you mentor me? Now, mind you, we're just meeting, so they don't know me from like Adam. And I'll never forget, Sherry Cole is a longtime women's coach at Oklahoma. And I asked her one convention to finally mentor me. This is after I knew somebody on her staff. Long story short, she was like, no. And I was like, she was like, I don't like know you like that. Like, what would I say? And like, not how dare you ask me, but just if you go ask someone, they need to know you and what you're going to be able to bring to the table. And I realized I just knew her from watching TV and my friend that worked there. And I always just liked her vibe, but I didn't know her like that. So when I started to become a little bit more intentional about people that actually like work with me, people that could speak on me, and if they couldn't, when I referred to the ADs earlier in the SWAs, I would stay in contact with them if they left Tulane or if I met them at one of my previous stops and say, hey, this is what I've been doing. Here's an update. Not necessarily resume, but this is what I've been doing. So when it was time to mentor me, I can kind of tell them, hey, this is what I think I need, but where do you see the deficiency? So taking some ownership about what you want and what you want your career to be. And then you have to communicate with this, like managing up. I'm learning that now. Managing up, we just got a new athletic director in July, and I'm like, we need to spend some time because the person who hired me said XYZ was okay, and I need to figure out what's okay with you. So me managing up is like, I'm going through the door first, having these conversations, so to let him know who I am and to see if these things match up. So I think letting your mentors, when you get to that point, kind of know what your goals are and if and how they can help you get there. And then what work are you going to do to help them help you? Because people like to help those who want to help themselves.
100%. Thanks for saying that. I totally agree. So I recommend when students are finding these Tulane alumni online, maybe a company that they're interested in working for, a great route to go is to apply for a job at the company through the website and then reach out to the Tulane alumni and say, I've applied for a job at, at Oshner or wherever, and I see you went to Tulane. So you're showing them you've already done the work. So people are definitely willing to help, but you have to show them that you're already organized and, this is your path and you just need a little bit of mentoring. So Maria, was there anyone who helped you along the way?
Yeah, actually, so my first semester at SOPA, I took one class and it was the human body. And that professor she's basically stayed with me this entire time. I've reached out to her throughout my time at SOPA and she helped guide me, or offer suggestions on electives and things like that. And she wrote my letter for the graduate program. She wrote a reference letter for this job. So she has been with me since the start of my Tulane career. So my advice would be to take advantage of the fabulous faculty and staff at Tulane. Like, they are top notch and they really want you to succeed. So that is my advice to you. Talk to your professors, partner with them, and they really want you to do well. They are in your corner.
Awesome. I love it. Great advice. Sam, did you have anyone besides me help you along the way?
I really was gonna give you credit. I was gonna say, you know, Susan has seriously helped me with resume, job applications. She was just like, I sent out your resume to this many people and this is what we're doing, and I just show up. But you know, aside from you, I agree, faculty, can't see in clearly on this, but Dr. Dunaway helped me connect with my internship. We connect at other places. We you know, we've kept in touch. She connected me with the School of Public Health with one of her friends. And even though I didn't go there, then from there I opened doors, you know, and just every time along the journey from undergrad to, again, I had her in grad school, like just constant support. And what are you doing? Where are you now? How, you know, just, and I think those things are small, but it got me to where I am now, you know, and I don't know if I would have had, maybe if I didn't, you know, if I didn't build that connection and put myself out there and say, hey, I think I want to do this. Will you help me? Will you guide me? You know, maybe I wouldn't be where I am now. But I would, yeah, give y'all two major credit for, you know, helping me, you know, come into myself and feel confident and, you know, try different things and, you know, using my resources and again, reaching out to, you know, the School of Public Health, which I didn't know if I wanted to do it, but I was like, you know, like I said, it got me my undergrad internship, it got me my graduate. I met so many people. And so, yeah, I would give props over there.
Awesome. Well, Sam and I were both looking for new jobs at the same time. So that's kind of another tip. Like, if you have a friend who's looking, you can team up and like meet for coffee and, you know, research online, but it's kind of nice to have a friend in the same boat. So I'm going to open it up if anyone has any questions for our awesome panel. Yeah, Joe.
Hi, yo, thanks for meeting with us. I feel like I kind of relate with you all in like different aspects. Like Maria, you say you work in epidemiology, and I currently work for the School of Public Health here at Tulane, and I'm also a health coach as well, so I relate with you on that aspect. But I'm also interested in moving towards athletics. So that's why I had to come. I feel like I had to come. So, but I'm also not sure like how I could fit into athletics with my current experience. I do have a sports medicine background. So I was interested, Coach, what you would think someone with the experience of maybe Sam and Maria, could you see anybody with that type of experience on a staff or with the team, you know, of anything of that sort?
Good question. Probably more so maybe Sam's role, maybe than Maria's role, just because especially a lot of the bigger schools, mental health is becoming a big part. Obviously, we're not mental health specialists, as I tell our team, but even just the nutritionists, some of those outside sources sometimes that you have to out-resource. So if you bring that type of skill set, if you're at like a Power 5 or even like a school Tulane size that might have some support staff, like a women's basketball there, for example, I have a head coach, 3 assistants, director of operations, and then like a video coordinator, right? Or usually video coordinators is also like player personnel, maybe your community service person, and then 2 GAs, So that's, I don't know how many people, a lot more than we have. Here we have myself, 3 assistants, and then an ops, nothing else after that. So in those support staff roles, you'll find some programs might have that. Up the street at LSU, for example, NIL is a big thing. So they have one person literally assigned to that, but then she also does some other type of coaching on the side. If it is nutrition based, whatever you're educated in, trust me, somebody can kind of tailor that skill set. So say you're interested in a job and you know that you can bring a health and wellness aspect to that program. Say how you're going to bring it, right? Don't just say, this is what I do, this is what I've done, and this is how I think I can help your program. And then make it make sense after that. If that makes sense. So I do think there could be a place, but probably more so what Sam is doing as opposed to what Maria is doing. Sorry, Maria.
Gotcha. Thank y'all.
Awesome. Do we have any other questions, either online or in the room? I know we started 5 minutes early, so we could let our presenters go enjoy their evening. You all have been awesome. I have been blown away. I know everyone in the room has enjoyed this. So we thank you all. If there's no more questions, we'll let y'all go enjoy your evening. Wait.
Oh, I was just waiting.
Oh.
Good night. Thank you all very much.
Bye, y'all. Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night. Well, it's not night here.
If I get the